we'll wait for another 10 seconds or so and then we start. Yeah. Okay. So good evening, everybody, and welcome to the IIMA Food, Agritech, and Agribusiness Alumni Special Interest Group webinar. The Alumni Special Interest Groups at IIMA are platforms that bring together alumni, faculty, and students and leverage the collective intellectual resources engaged in specific areas such as healthcare, education, technology, analytics, public policy, entrepreneurial ecosystem, etc. To bear on some of the most challenging issues of our times. The ASIG platform allows the institute community to collaborate with each other much more intimately and to engage with industry and practitioners in a much more multifaceted manner. The IIMA FAB ASIG is a group of alumni, faculty and students of the institute with expertise and interest in the fields of food, agritech, and agribusiness. It fosters collaboration among the IIMA community and the wider world of practitioners who contribute to this space. An important activity of the Alumni Special Interest Groups are the webinar series, which bring the thoughts, views, and expertise of experts and industry leaders to the IIMA community. Today's discussion addresses making agritech work for small farmers. Through this today, we address one of the most notoriously difficult challenges that the country faces. Now, the challenge looms large for us, not only for the obvious reasons of food security, but also because the sector at roughly around $370 billion for the country is the primary source of income for about 40% of the population and contributes about 20% to the GDP. And the public and private entities continue to grapple with deep structural flaws and archaic systems. Agritech, of course, comes in because it could play a very vital role in shaping the solution. Agritech would utilize, of course, AI, ML, IoT, and other technologies, and manifest in the form of a lot of variety of solutions and a variety of formats in which it could be implemented. For example, drones, irrigation solutions, weather forecasting, various types of sensors, face tracking, etc., etc. I mean, the issues are vast, and of course, we will try to address as much of it today in this short span of time that we have. To address this vital topic, I'm very happy to welcome the panel. Bala, Reddy, PGP ABM 2007, founder and CEO of our Food. Subhadeep, Sanyal, PGP ABM 2011, partner Omnivore. Shyam, Singh, PGP 2011, co-founder De-Haat. Tauseef, PGP ABM 2014, co-founder and CEO of Gramophone. Sreeram, Raavi, CEO of Eruvaka Technologies. Welcome, everybody. In conversation with them, we have Professor Vidya, Vemireddy, faculty and member of the Center for Management in Agriculture at IIMA, and Hemendra, Mathur, PGP 1996, co-founder of ThinkAG. Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you all here to address this vital topic. Now I hand over the platform to Vidya to take over the proceedings.
Thanks, Anurag, and good evening, everybody. For the ones online, panelists, my fellow coordinator, moderator for this session, Hemendra, and also everybody joining us all over the country and even globally who have registered for this amazing topic that we've started. I'll give you, I'm a faculty here at the Center for Management in Agriculture at IIMA, and I'll give you a slight background on the SIG, why the genesis of it and how we were going to take it forward, and also then we will dive into the discussion and Hemendra would take over. So essentially, the FAB the SIG club, which is on the food, agri-tech, agribusiness, is a very important, diverse community that we have in India, which has been contributing significantly to both industry, policy, academics, and our alumni have contributed over the years. This is a forum that we bring together, and we would present on various occasions through webinars, through discussion papers, white papers, etc. And you'll see a lot of that coming in the years together from this group, and in creating the knowledge base, the know-how, and exactly what's happening in this sector, because it comprises of multi-sectors, probably. So all of this we would be taking on. But today we gather here to discuss one of the very, very important topics of making all the agri-technologies work for smallholders comprising. And we all know the context, and we'll set the context as we go along the discussion. But welcome again, and hoping to have a great discussion as well as Q&A followed up with that. Hemendra, over to you. Yeah.
Thanks, Vidya, and a very, very good evening to all the panelists and participants. This is the first webinar from FAB ASIG. So we picked up a topic which is a lot of interest to everyone, making agri-tech work for smallholder farmers. Just want to take a couple of minutes to do the context setting. Why smallholder farmers? That's the first question. And I think many of you may be aware that almost 80-85% of farmers in India, which is almost 120 million farmers, are small and marginal, owning land which is less than 2 hectares. And if you look at globally, the number of smallholder farmers is 50 million. So that's 500 million. So that's a very, very large number, right? And if you assume that for farmer has a family size of 4, you can imagine almost 2 billion people on this planet depend on income coming from smallholder farmers. That's almost 25% of the global population. So I think that is a very, very large number. And of course, there is no estimate how much of this food production from smallholder farmers is going for consumption to consumers. But I would assume at least 1.5 billion to 2 billion people are consuming food which is produced in small farms, right? So these are staggering numbers. And unless we solve for the challenges of smallholder farmers, I don't think agri-tech can become mainstream, especially in countries like India, China, African countries, places like Vietnam, Philippines, which are essentially dominated by smallholder farmers. So clearly making farm economics work on 1 hectare of land, to me, is a litmus test for agri-tech. And what we are seeing, especially if you look at the history of Indian agri-tech in particular, over the last 12 years or so, we are seeing multiple solutions coming from startups. As I'm speaking today, there are probably more than 1,500 agri-tech startups trying to build very interesting solutions for smallholder farmers. Just to give you a flavor of these solutions, I think a large number of solutions are focused on building market access, helping smallholder farmers connect with large number of buyers, help them discover buyers more efficiently, help them in price discovery, helping also them in storing, processing, and in doing value addition right at the farm, so that they can earn a higher share in the consumer price. So the multitude of solutions which are on the market access side. On another hand, we are also seeing a lot of solution which is helping farmers optimize the cost of inputs, be it fertilizers, be it seeds, be it agrochemicals, how much urea to use, how much DAP to use, how much, when to spray pesticides and how much to spray, how much, when to irrigate and how much to irrigate. So there are a lot of solutions on the input side as well. Then we have a large army of startups who are building data-centric solutions, capturing a lot of data on soil health, plant health, data about hyperlocal weather parameters, and then suggesting farmers on the best practices. It does involve a lot of hardware like satellite imagery, like sensors, weather stations, IoT devices, even smartphones. And they're building very interesting algorithms through AI ML, which is essentially the secret sauce in terms of giving very, very personalized advisory to farmers. So I think that's also picked up quite a bit. Another area which is a little bit, I would say, emerging, which has picked up in last couple of years, is solutions around financing, farmer financing and value chain financing, which is and I don't think it was ever intended to get there, but since significant part of the supply chain is digitized, a lot of data is getting created, which is helping bankers to figure out who are the right farmers to lend to, what is their credit worthiness, what are the risks involved, how do you underwrite more efficiently with the data which is available, and how do you go about loan recovery in a much more efficient way. So we are seeing a significant pivot from agri-tech to agri-fintech, which is quite interesting. So this is sort of I would say, the key innovation themes that we see in the Indian agri-tech space. A lot of it is digital tech. I think the biotech, the processing tech, the infra tech, the nutrition tech is still picking up. But nonetheless, it's a good start. I would say most of agri-tech has happened in India in the last 5 to 7 years. And there are estimates that it has touched about 5 to 10% of farming community, which is not significant given the fact it is at a very, very early stage. But the big question is, how will this adoption evolve? Will farmers pay for this solution? That's a multi-billion-dollar question. And how the public ecosystem need to be nurtured to take this solution to masses, especially to smallholder farmers, right? Where the last mile and the first mile access is always a challenge. So I think these are some of the questions that we want to answer. We may not be conclusive in today's webinar, but we will definitely highlight the nuances around how agri-tech solutions are trying to solve for the problems, especially for smallholder farmers. So with that, I'll get into the discussion, and I'll first go to Subhadeep, who's the only investor on this panel, and someone who has I would say, very panoramic view of the whole sector, since he's been investing in the sector for more than a decade and invested, I don't know, the number keeps changing, maybe over 35 agri-tech startups already across different value chains. So Subhadeep, my question to you, how these agri-tech solutions are scaling, especially the ones which are targeted at smallholder farmers. And I would also want to ask you, is the agri-tech startups and the agri-tech entrepreneurs, can they become sustainable while serving the smallholder farmers? That's also a very important question. Over to you, Subhadeep.
Great. Thank you so much, Hemendra. Always a pleasure to have you help us wade through this, because I think the macro gets set very beautifully, and all of us have to do less talking. So I think to your point, and if I can take a stab at that, see, we exist as a fund only to kind of focus on smallholder related innovations, technologies, business models, and kind of funding them. I could possibly do an anecdotal response to this. So when we started early days of Omnivore, let's say 2011-12 days, and if I contrast it to where we are today, 2022, there has been a sea change in terms of the adoption of these technologies that we see with farmers. Now, does that mean that every smallholder is covered? Obviously not. But in 2012, and I think some of our fellow panelists have been in the space for that time, everyone will vouch for the fact that just explaining an IoT device, an IoT sensor, and what it may do on the farm was itself like a project. It was like an experiment which a scientist is doing, right? And not a commercial activity. And I remember so many people, and Sreeram is here and he can talk about his early days of how conversion was very, very difficult with individual farmers. But I think the point is that the Indian agri-tech landscape has seen a couple of waves, right? The first wave was where we saw just a lot of really passionate, highly risk-taking entrepreneurs saying that this is a massive space, lot of inefficiencies, let's see what we can fix, right? And they just went at the problem, moved the best way they could into the field and tried to solve with first principles approach. The second wave kind of came in, I think, around 2015, right? When we as a fund started to see companies which were more trying to form these digital highways, which today we call, farmer platforms or B2B platforms, which have started to exist. And that I think also has a larger macro, geo happened in the country. Data rates crashed, mobile phones became cheaper. Also, we had the first wave of non-agri startups, which had kind of emerged, and you had slowly, you'd start to see talent from those kind of companies, from your Flipkarts, from Amazons, etc., to slowly come into agri as well, to kind of either start or join agri-tech companies, right? So that I think became like the second wave, where we saw the initial stages of trying to aggregate farmers, whether it's information or inputs or outputs, whatever was possible, trying to kind of build digital highways into smallholder farmers. And I think the third wave where we currently are in is basically a wave where it's becoming about not so much just a group of farmers, but what can you do for like the individual farmer, the unit farm, or if you are in the case of a like livestock, what can you do for the individual animal? So I think we are moving in that direction where today, if I look at and there are so many great companies today who will speak, so I'll speak about some other examples. Let's say a company like Fasal, which works in horticulture, and provides them kind of advisory around irrigation and chemicals, and that's a massive saving for a horticulture farmer. And there's an IoT device, mind you, which is involved, so the farmer is happy to pay 30,000-40,000 rupees and a subscription, because the kind of cost savings they see on their chemicals. And again, this is very much a smallholder farmer. There's a 3-acre farmer who does tomato, right, or a 4-acre guy who does pomegranates. So the point is, there are solutions like these which have now started to be, because I'm with you 100% when you said that our biggest problem used to be in 2015, 16, right till 2018, that how does farmer ever pay for tech, right, in a scalable solution? It's still very rare. You will find most of the companies monetizing in a B2B2F fashion, in a business to farmer model, right, where maybe the benefit of the tech is being is basically being borne by a business entity, which is also bearing the cost of the tech. So I think what we're now seeing this, and these might be early days, but whether it's horticulture, whether it's dairy, where we've seen companies like Stellaps kind of come into individual small farms and now putting on Fitbits for animals, however crazy it may sound, because there is a commercial rationale to it. And farmers, what we have learned in our limited understanding is that they're great businessmen, right, and women. So they understand the value of kind of capital investments, they understand ROI, right, and they are entrepreneurs. They take a lot of risk, right? It's not just investment, but they have massive number of uncertainties. All our jobs combined are basically trying to see that if we can reduce some of those uncertainties from their business lives. So I think the point there is that we are seeing enough and more of digital adoption. Advisory is of course another great place where we see, let's say, folks like Bharat Agri, or in the livestock space, and Animal, also kind of reach out to individual farmers very easily and provide value, which they're monetizing, which they're getting paid for, right? So I think those were kind of the three waves of agri-tech, and how maybe even adoption has moved, whether it's for digital products and services, or even for other non-digital tech, right? We many a times miss out on kind of the other stuff which is also out there. But let's say adoption of a novel biopesticide, for example, or something like that, which requires a lot of trial with farmers. The whole point is that now reaching out to an individual farmer or a group of farmers is way cheaper than it used to be. Right? There are businesses which are just creating like a Facebook-like approach for farmers, where you can, okay, if you want to talk to 1,000 farmers with this kind of a demography, come, this is kind of the access fee, right? Or we'll help you launch a product in that geography. So all those solutions are kind of being built, right? So at one level, we of course see that because of the massive number you mentioned, 130, 120 million farmers, maybe we're at the first kind of, 5 to 10 million, right? But I think that early, and because we at Omnivore are largely an early stage fund, so focuses on kind of seeing what is going to be more important 5 years, 7 years down the line. So we do see that adoption of tech is not really going to be the challenge 6 or 7 years down the line. So that curve, I think, has started, and it's a much more faster curve than we'd often think.
Thanks, Subhadeep, for really describing different waves of agri-tech and bucketing them, and how it has moved to third wave already in less than 10 to 12 years. I think it's quite fascinating. And if I can add to your description, I think agri-tech will ultimately be defined as a pre-COVID and a post-COVID situation. The kind of digital adoption that I've seen last 18 to 24 months is mind-boggling. I personally believe it has accelerated digital adoption by at least 3 years. What we expected to happen in 2025 probably is happening in 2022. And of course, there's no data around it, but it's primarily driven by my experience of visiting villages and mandis. People are so comfortable using digital media now, especially the media which is in the video, vernacular, voice format. I think that is so easy to consume, and farmers are looking for some real good content, some real good apps which can solve for it. And I think they're very digitally aware, which I never seen, which is quite significant and can become a harbinger of an inflection point in times to come, from penetration to move from, let's say, less than 10% to probably 80% in next 5 to 6 years, which can really change the landscape of agri-tech and hopefully also positively impact smallholder farmers in that process. Great. I think that's a great start. Probably I will move to Bala now. Bala, when we talk about agri-tech, it's almost sounds synonymous with digital tech in Indian context. Of course, Subhadeep mentioned about biotech products and their adoption as well, but that's a very small category. I think you are someone who's beautifully combined digital tech with a lot of farm level asset creation, through microprocessing units and creating value addition right at the farm, helping the farmer as well as a lot of micro entrepreneurs who are in the villages. Can you just elaborate on your model and what's your experience in creating these thousands of microprocessing units, how it is changing the lives of farmers? Does it really mean more money in the hand of the farmers? Over to you, Bala. Bala, you're on mute.
Unmute. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Hemendra, for giving this opportunity and this opinion to speak about our innovation. So the biggest problem in Indian value chain is the farmer is not getting remunerative price. Even though the farmer knows the customer, he or she is able to reach out the end consumer. The biggest problem is the consumer wants it in the value-added form. To do that, we don't have facilities. All the existing facilities available are very high capex equipments, which are not accessible by the smallholder farmers. And to do that, we need to devise ways and means in which we can establish this infrastructure on ground at the farm level. So to do that, most of the Indian foods, we don't require much of processing equipment. We need to simplify that. So what we have done is along with the agri universities, we developed these low-cost machineries like dal mills, chili powder, turmeric mills, rice mills, groundnut mills. And the cost of these mills is under 3 lakh rupees. So we need to install this machinery at the farm level so that farmers can easily afford this equipment and they can get local finances from the local banks. So this was our business model. So we started manufacturing this equipment and started installing this at a farm level by selecting unemployed small and marginal youth farmers who are in the age group of 25 to 35. So the biggest challenge that we got in the form of not getting the bank loan, because not every farmer in our model, they are supposed to invest 3 lakhs amount of money to construct the shed where we can install this machinery. Their contribution, they are able to set up that shed, but the problem is when we go to the banker and ask for the loan, every banker says this, yes, this is possible, but the problem is we need some form of collateral, mortgage. that should be in the form of non-agricultural land. So this is where we faced our biggest bottleneck in 2018 and 19 timeline. But with our own money, from the book of our accounts, we started giving this missionary, and we demonstrated this model on ground. So we started processing at farm level by taking the farmer's material through our farmer franchisee model, and we successfully demonstrated. So that's when the bankers started seeing this. But after COVID, so many NBFCs came forward to lend to our farmer franchises. But the biggest problem is the interest rate is very high, and we are supposed to give FLDG, and also there is a high amount of processing fee for NBFCs, which we couldn't afford. So all these bottlenecks try to stop our innovation to go forward, because we couldn't scale up. That is when the bankers, the public sector banks started coming under this banking correspondent program. So thanks to ThinkAG, which actually arranged this through State Bank of India, now we have been appointed as the banking correspondent. So now we are getting loans through State Bank of India, and also under the Agri-Infra Fund by the central government. Because of this, we are able to disrupt this. So now we are present in 12 states. We have machines like rice mills, chili powder, turmeric mills, groundnut, millets. And now we are getting into more value-added machines like spices blending, soya extraction, tomato puree, these kind of horticultural products also. Now we are able to disrupt this across India by reaching out to states like even Jharkhand, Orissa, West Bengal, in the interiors of our agriculture hinterland, where most of the small and marginal farmers are there.
Great, Bala. This is quite fascinating, the kind of work you have done. And to me, very clearly, I think this whole goal of doubling farmer income, I personally believe it's not a productivity issue, it's not a yield issue. It's more about how do you make farmer participant in the value chain, right? And unless you create these kind of units right there, it's very difficult for farmer to build products, to sell brands. I think what you have demonstrated, and it's very interesting to see the intersection between financing, market linkage, and sort of this micro entrepreneurship. Combination of these, how it is solving for it. So great, Bala. This is fantastic. I definitely have more questions for you, and I'll come back to you. Now I'll go to Tauseef. Tauseef, you are someone who's done a lot of work on the input side. Of course, now you have also become a full stack platform. But if you can talk about how digitization of input supply chain has impacted farmers' access to good quality inputs. We know how much fake inputs are sold in rural India, how unaware farmers are about new product launches. Does digitization helping farmers to know what are the best product, when to buy, how much to apply, because there's a lot of decisions were taken by farmers on gut feel. So if you can talk about that, that will be very useful. Over to you, Tauseef.
So we started in 2016, but before that, I spent almost a couple of years investing in multiple agri companies as well. But I think we started with a basic premise that our farmers can do entire agriculture in a much more efficient way. And there is a potential to actually increase income of the farmers by at least 50 to 60%. If we compare it with the developed nation, in most of the commodities, we are at least 30-40% lower in productivity levels. And this is the activity which is actually in control of the hands of the farmer. While on the output side, market decides most of the prices, where value addition and these kind of things are a lot of things where there is a lot of investment that needs to be done by the farmers. And now that is also happening. So with that premise, I think what has happened over the last 6 years of our operations, we went directly to the farmers. In the first phase, it was primarily imagination that they will come on a smartphone application and do the entire transaction over there. But now we've seen, I think you rightly mentioned pre-COVID and post-COVID, Post-COVID, we have seen a significant change over there in terms of adoption. So today we have broken down the entire like tech stack more from farm management, then input commerce, and bringing the output side of the chain over there. There we have seen pre-COVID only 4 to 5% of the transactions were happening actually on the application. Today, I won't say that we have reached like 80%, but we have in this month of June, when the season has picked this time, last month, we did almost 40% of orders that were coming from the application. And I think we were building very gradually the pieces of farm management. We believe that for 2-hectare farmers who would probably not install an IoT device or like basic other equipments, if you break down the entire cropping cycle in smaller pieces and make it more algo led, that you can maybe at a district level, if there is a cropping pattern, based on that there is a deficiency that you know that soya grows in one particular geography, there is a deficiency in sulfur over there. If you even do that part well, and we know that farmers typically don't take micro elements in a much better way where the soil health has depleted. We started basically after building the trust and working in those geographies for 3-4 years. We now started like building packages for them. And today, I think 5% of the farmers are paying for agronomy only and farm management solutions, which is information only on our platform, which is a huge like shift from people paying for people trying to basically get information either from a retailer ecosystem or from a company who is a manufacturer. Now they are ending up paying for these services. While transactions is something which has already started to come on digital platform, but I think agronomy and paying for that is a huge like step which I feel in terms of adoption has already like started to happen. So right now in the central part of the country, almost like 2 million farmers are using it on a monthly like level, which is a huge number I feel. And out of that, even if 10,000 farmers are paying for advice, which says a lot in terms of that they're looking for extra income. And people have started seeing that there are a lot of like people who were just doing, suppose let's take an example of Rich Card on 1 acre. Now from there, the productivity that they have seen has improved so much that they started doing it on lease. And we have so many stories that farmers have bought cars in 3 to 4 years period of time by just doing agriculture in the right way. Now with, I think we also actually like build on the output side, that on the same platform with the data that we have the farm level data, we know who the farmer is there, and we engage with them across the cropping cycle. So therefore, this data is very important because we can predict when the harvest will come out at a particular location. So with that, started connecting them with more than 10,000 buyers on the same platform. So, and these are farmers now there. I think we started with simple connection over there, and they have started basically doing transactions by just talking to each other. A lot of it we intervene in between, but digitally we have started seeing the movement over there. And while people are putting buy listings, sell listings on the same platform, we get a huge amount of data in terms of multiple geographies, multiple mandis about what's the price of demand and supply over there. So now all these things we see that are coming together. And the last leg, which is there, basically building the financing piece over and above that, that's where we are now moving. So I think to cut it like short, we have seen that the adoption has basically gone very high now. In the next, in terms of overall transactions on the platform, would go probably like 60 to 10% of farmers have started paying through UPI, which is a huge thing actually.
Great, Tauseef. Lot of interesting and eye-opening data point, I must say, you shared in last 5 minutes. And it's music to the ears. 10% transaction through UPI is a great, the great statistics to have. and 2 million farmers on a digital platform with a lot of them transacting on app itself is a great thing. And I think you mentioned a very important point. I think we talked about sustainability of agri startups. I think it's so important to spend time in a geography and learn from there. Sometime because of ambition of growing too fast, you miss that. It's so critical to make a lot of mistakes early and learn, and then probably go and the fact that a lot of these models are becoming full stack at certain level of their growth cycle is a clear testimony that when you are serving farmers, there's so much you can do. But it's very important, how do you build a business unit economics around all of these models. If you're a platform, how do you make money while selling for farmers, while selling to farmers? And the fact that you mentioned you are even monetizing data and advisory, I think is a great news. So I think a lot of myth around that farmer don't pay for data. I don't think it is a black and white truth. There are farmers who are willing to pay for data, which is clearly impacting their farm economics in some ways. So great points, Tauseef. With that, I'll go over to Shyam. Shyam, we all know De-Haat. We all, of course, have high expectations from De-Haat. It's been one of the very first few full stack platforms in India when it comes to Agri-Tech. I think my question to you started from a geography. You started from Bihar, not a very easy state to work, but you have demonstrated success there, and you are becoming a pan-India model. So my question to you: can these solutions that which likes of De-Haat are developing, can they be, let's say, copy pasted from one state to another, or from one crop to another? What is the scalability? What is the level of standardization? And what is the level of customization that you may have to do when you are getting into new state? And I know you are into multiple states already. So I think that will be very interesting to hear from someone like you.
Thank you, Hemendra. So a very interesting question from that sense, right? What we have seen over the last 10 years of growing this in eastern parts of India, and then last 2-3 years of again expanding to other geographies of India, right? So there are multiple things, right? One, I will talk about, say, basic unit economics, right? Sense of basic unit economics and how does that work over when you move from one state to other state, right? And then what are the different major differences which are there across multiple? So agri is largely a state subject, right? Every state has its own dynamics in agri, its own regulations, challenges, kind of priorities that ecosystem has overall. So that in that way there has been a lot of differences, right? Even for the same crop, like the crop ecosystem for wheat, how that works in Bihar would be very different from how that works in Madhya Pradesh or how that works in Rajasthan. Much of that, of course, comes from the regulatory framework, but also that comes from the kind of ecosystem players which are there, the kind of farmers are there, the kind of, say, other stakeholders are there. What we believe, right, there is one thing that we always quote, that in India, and a lot of this is true when we are talking about the digital adoption among smallholders, right, that in India, at the same time, around 6 generations of farmers coexist, right, at the same time, all the time, right? You will have a lot of progressive farmers, large farmers, you will have a lot of subsistence farmers, farmers who are very much conscious of what they are doing, while farmers who are very casual farmers, right? So all of them would coexist, and different solutions need to be built for different farmers, right? A lot of us who have started working in this sector have gradually realized around this customization or personalization, all of us, right, having that farmer focus across multiple geographies. So as long as that is there, the unit economics becomes most important, right? So in our case, there is this basic unit economics built around one single micro entrepreneur, right? How that micro entrepreneurs in their coverage area of 3 to 5 kilometers, how much business opportunities that we can generate. Now 150 such micro entrepreneurs working in a district, right? How does that unit economics works, right? And over what period of time? That sense of unit economics with a full stack model is well established in our case, and right. And basic premise, the basic principle remains same across multiple geographies. And we have seen that, the only difference that is there is that definitely that in eastern parts of India, there are challenges related to infrastructure, digital adoption, then overall market dynamics. The market is also relatively more unorganized. In many parts of the country, markets are little bit more organized. So basic unit economics remains same. It's just that these are larger markets, more competitive markets, and better organized markets. But and that's why in our case, and I guess that is true for most companies, that a basic sense of unit economics, if that holds good across multiple states, we are good to go across this, right? What helps us, right, in terms of when you said copying pasting, right? It's the institutional relationships, right? For a full stack platform like us, the biggest competitive advantage that we have, or the biggest go-to market strategy that we have is in terms of the institutional relationships that we carry, right? So most of the agri input suppliers, agri input buyers, right, you will almost work with the same cohort of same cohort of institutional players, right? And that you carry forward. So with your basic sense of unit economics, with your basic sense of with your relationship across buyers and suppliers, that makes go-to-market easier across multiple geographies. And in large areas, things would remain agnostic, right? It's just that for us, what we believe is that in western parts of India, in most of the northern parts of India, in southern parts of India, it definitely is a very exciting opportunity for us. We are scaling.
Great. Some very good points, Shyam. Clearly, institutional relationships you mentioned is extremely key, because demand aggregation and dissemination of the demand to supply, especially to smallholder farmers, is not an easy job. So at least if you have demand landscape sorted out, you can figure out how to work with supply chains. And clearly, it's again a personal belief that as far as demand is concerned, I'm talking more from a consumer end, we are seeing some bit of homogenization, more fiber, more protein, less of carbohydrate, right? So, as incomes are growing, we are seeing some bit of homogenization of demand. South India eating atta and North India eating rice. I think that's becoming the challenges remain around supply side. How do supply side prepare itself for the change of demand pattern that we are seeing? And over and above that, I see significant regional and seasonal arbitrage in the way products are available. So clearly, it's a big challenge, and we need a lot of technology to solve for it. But I think the opportunity exists to cater to the evolving demand, and of course, reduce a lot of significant amount of post-harvest losses that we see because of this demand-supply mismatch from time to time. Great, Shyam. Again, I'll come back to you in the next round. And with that, I'll go to Sreeram. Sreeram, sorry for keep you waiting. But we would love to hear from you. I think so far we've been talking more about crops. You are someone who works in the aqua and the fisheries value chain, which is again extremely important, both from a domestic consumption perspective, but also for exports. This is one of the largest export categories in a kitty. What challenges do you see while you sell your data and subscription-led solution to farmers in the aqua value chain? And does your solution help them also de-risk the significant amount of challenges that we see in aqua value chains, especially around the price volatility and high degree of mortality, etc.? How do you de-risk farming for aqua farmers? Shyam, you to unmute.
Yeah, thanks, Hemendra, for making me a part of this panel. Glad to share. I think it's been a decade since we started Eruvaka. It's a good journey for us. So we saw 3G, 4G, and now maybe we'll see 5G as well, and how aquaculture has transformed itself. So what I figured out was when I started Eruvaka, I was astonished to see the amount of money that the farmer makes in aquaculture, which is a high risk and high reward sector. If all goes well, farmer sells a shrimp worth almost like 10 lakh rupees. And the crop cycle is like 4 months, and they do like 2 crops in a year. So it's almost like 20 lakh rupees productivity in per acre by growing shrimps. But so the farmer makes somewhere between 25 to 30% margin on that. But if something goes wrong, he loses the rest 70%. That is the sector, and unlike crops wherein you can see the productivity and you can see the pests, everything is visible. So typically we have 10 lakh rupees underwater. So farmer is not aware of what is actually there and how much he can harvest and what is there inside, how much shrimp is available under the water. So that fascinated us that we should focus on this particular sector and develop technologies around it. And that made us excited. And at Eruvaka, we work on how do we bring predictability to aquaculture. So if you see 60 to 70% of the cost is basically typically spent on aquaculture feed for the shrimps. And feed is a double-edged sword. If you feed less, the shrimp doesn't grow. If you feed more, the water gets deteriorated and ammonia gets high, and the shrimp will die. And all this, say if something goes wrong, it goes wrong in just 12 to 24 hours. And if the farmer doesn't act on it, he loses his whole crop. So that is where we brought in this precision farming, precision feeding technologies. So basically, it's a deep tech product. So typically, what it does is it senses the appetite of the shrimp. It's like when we chew kurkure or lace, we make sounds with our teeth. Similarly, shrimp, when it chews the feed, it makes those sounds, and we capture those underwater sounds. And based on that, we know what is the right amount of feed to be fed to the shrimp. That ensures that the shrimp get right amount of feed. And it also ensures that based on the amount of feed it consumes, we have some algorithms to detect how much biomass, how much shrimp are underwater. That brings predictability. And it also ensures that it also gives like around 20% of, on an average, our technology gives like 20% of feed savings. So the ROI was very clear to the farmer, but it took us a lot of perseverance to get to where we are. So the initial adoption was not so easy. So actually, there are multiple things here. So it's like, in our case, it's like we need to convince the farmer first. And the first set of farmers were convinced, but the farm workers were not convinced to adopt the technology. So that is where we had to again go back to our room to see how do we make it more reliable and how do we improve the usability of the product, so that the farm worker also adopts these products. And in sectors like this, what we also figured out was we need to go slow. We can't rush and show the numbers. So because re-adoption of a technology, if it fails, is a big challenge. Say in certain farmers, we could see to convince a farmer where he couldn't see the results, it took us 5 years to convince him back to adopt the technology. So as a journey, what we have done is we have constructed our own farms. We did their trial for 2 years. Then we moved closer to the farmers. Suppose a farmer has 10 ponds. We almost took 2 ponds from his regular 10 ponds and proved him the results. That is when he could get convinced. Because it's not something that we are showing him a fiction movie, but he's seeing the actual results. So the adoption was good. And then the critical question happened, how does the farmer adopt this technology? Because it's a little bit on a higher side. That is where we did some business model innovation in terms of bringing in subscription hardware as a service model. And there are a couple of reasons for it. Affordability is one thing. And typically the farmer uses it only for 6 months and a year. The rest 6 months, the equipment would be idle. So we thought like, how do we improve the usage of the device. So that is where with the business model innovation, we could use the device for 10 to 11 months by giving them under subscription. So out of like, say, the farmer saves around like 50 to 60,000 rupees in a crop cycle because of our device, and we charge around like 15,000 rupees for the subscription. So that way the ROI was clear, and that helped us to scale up the business. And apart from that, what we also figured out in the process was the shrimp cultivation in India is also almost similar to what it is being done in Ecuador, Indonesia, and Vietnam. While we were readying this technology for India, we got some leads from Latin America. And in Latin America, the farm sizes are bigger. Like each farmer typically owns somewhere between from 1,000 acres to like 5,000 acres. So that is where it was right technology fit for those farms, because they were looking at digitalization of bigger farms. A farmer in India is somewhere between 20 to 25 acres. But in Latin America, since the farm sizes are bigger, digitalization was crucial for them. And our product was a right fit. And we could scale fast in those areas in Latin America. So that helped us to have a revenue streams to grow our business in India. So our business in Latin America was EBITDA, very much EBITDA positive, but in India we had to like break even for 2 to 3 years. But now the adoption has picked up.
Great, Shyam, some very important points. I think first of all, it takes time to build these solutions. You can't build it overnight, and the amount of time you invested is commendable. I think, and making unit economics work. I think someone paying 15,000, saving 50,000 is a clear indicator that the model is working. And the fact that model has moved from India to Latin America is also a big validation of what you have done. And I personally believe a lot of agri-tech that we're developing in India, clearly a lot of that solutions are portable to many other countries. So some good points again coming from Sreeram. Thanks, Sreeram, for joining us. And of course, we will have more questions for you. I think we have got some phenomenal number of questions in our chat box and Q&A box. And I'll request my colleague Vidya to please take them up and go ahead asking those questions to the panel. Vidya, over to you.
Thanks, Hemendra. I think one of the burning questions, I think keep it open also, and we can come back for a more specific question to a panelist, but is anybody can answer this, is do you think that AgTech businesses are sustainable with all your experience that you are talking about? And I think some of you have alluded to changing business model innovations, right? So from a business side, do you think this is sustainable, like over time? Tauseef, would you like to go? I think
sure.
Anybody can. Yeah. I think this.
Yeah. So let me take that question.
Sure.
Yes. So Agritech business models will be sustainable provided if we show the economies of scale to the small and marginal farmers as well. That means proper return on investment. All the models have to be centered around the farmer. We need to show the profitability on ground. So if we have physical presence on ground, definitely the models will become sustainable, because that physical presence, no one can replicate that. It's not, that is going to create a hurdle for any other company who will enter into the same field. For example, when we established this processing unit at farm level, there is a definite increase in the price that is given to the farmer. That is, straight away the farmer will be saving in terms of 3 to 5% market commission, 1% market sales, and the transportation costs involved, and the loss deduction that goes into the mandi. So if you calculate all this, it straight away comes to 20% more price than what they get in the traditional market. So when we show this profitability to the farmer by demonstrating it on ground, definitely the businesses, agri-tech businesses will be sustainable.
Thanks for that, Bala. Just picking on that question, what has been your experience in the adoption journey? Like, so how do you see farmers adopting it? Is there a pattern emerging out of the adoption where you see large farmers coming in first or small farmers, or is it very, context specific, or, what has been your experience? And I think Sreeram could also take that question after Bala. Thanks.
Yeah, so when we started this innovation in 2016 and designed the first set of machines by 2017 March, so our biggest question was how to take this to the farm level. Who should become our customer? Is it the large farmer who is rich, who can afford this machinery, or is it the small farmer, or who should become? So we thought initially we don't have ground presence, so we need to associate with the local partners like NGOs and who have FPOs and who have the ground presence. So we started associating with them. But at that point of time, no one was able to believe that these small machinery can also bring efficiency in terms of processing, especially pulses. So everyone has the myth that these kind of small machines will not give proper product. That is why the large capex mills have come. So this was the myth existing with every farmer, every user. So because of that, we were not in a position to earn the trust of the farmer. So we need to find out a rich farmer who can afford this. Even if they go into the losses, they should be able to sustain. So the rich farmers started coming. But we demonstrated this equipment by not accepting the rich farmers as our customers. But we started associating more with the unemployed youth and youth, small and marginal farmers. So that is where these people started doing a lot of hard work, and it took us around 1 year of time to demonstrate this on ground, that this machinery is can produce material with full efficiency and with proper quality. So the journey has been from initially we started associating with local organizations, and then to the rich farmers, and then to the proper small and marginal entrepreneurial farmers. So that is where we understood that we need to catch these entrepreneurial small and marginal farmers who can invest some amount in this innovation, and the rest of it we will facilitate them through loan, and then the processing started happening.
That's very interesting. Shyam, what was your experience in sort of the adoption journey, right? Like, I think there are some journeys that are emerging here.
Yeah. So our initial product when we started Eruvaka was like some pond guard, which was an oxygen monitoring device. And the adoption was okay. So what we figured out was it's like a good to have product, not a must have product. It's a good to have product. It's more like many of the doctors suggest you to go take health checks every year, but most of it doesn't go. It's a good to have thing. So we've then figured out what is the real pain point the farmers have. Like managing their feed is the major pain point. And so that is a must to have product which they use like every hour in a day. So that was the major shift that we did. In 2 years, we understood that the product that we are developed is okay, but we need to develop much more, a bigger product which has a deeper impact. And that was a good, adoption was great then. And in our case, the adoption was good with small and medium farmers. We couldn't onboard large farmers yet. So because the large farmers have a lot of other businesses, this is not their only business. So the small and medium farmers, agriculture is their only focus, and they realize the benefits of it. And we onboarded them first, and then the large farmers followed the medium and small farmers.
Vidya, can we also bring in gender angle here? Because a lot of farmers in India are women farmers, especially dairy, animal husbandry, horticulture. And of course, when we think of a farmer, we think of a man. That's how we are thinking is. But the fact of the matter is, a significant part of agriculture in India is already feminine, and it probably will become more feminine. So, does anyone among the panel has an experience working with women farmers, and how do they react to these kind of solutions? Are they, as compared to male farmers, are their adoption rates different?
So, Hemendra, in most of our processing units, women are the major, contributors. So, when we explain this, so they'll be thinking that their husband will be, handling all kinds of stuff in the village and all that. But most of the time, they spend on the agri farm. So, when we pitched this concept to women farmer, they are the ones who actually adopt immediately. So most of our farmer franchisees are on the names of women farmer, and at the same time, they are the major contributors in the processing industry as well. In our
great, Shyam and Tauseef, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, two aspects, right? You are right that they often refer male farmers, right? But in our case, generally it's a household. There are two activities where we have seen primary, at least from our sense, when we go to the field, we see primary activity, primary participation from farmers, right? One is related to overall advisory and meetings, right? And that also we have calibrated our approach, and we have piloted with sending extension agents and female extension agents to field, and saw greater participation of women farmers, right? So that's one activity. When we send say IVR calls, generally it's agnostic, so we have around 30 to 40 farmers in our farmer segment whom we send advisory as information are women farmers. But recently, in the last 1 year, we have entered into the providing the animal nutrition feed to same set of farmers. And there, over the course of last few months, what we have realized is that influencer of those products, right, are generally women farmers, right? And the whole campaign, the entire focus has shifted to targeting these women farmers from our sense, right? Considering that those are the products that we are establishing, there are certain practices that we are establishing in this, right? Working with farmers in their livestock avatar, right? So farmers targeting the same set of farmers, especially small and marginal farmers who are carrying, say, 2 to 5 cattle with them, right? So who are tending 2 to 5 cattle. So in their case, most of the decision making, the feedback, the person who is feeding to cattle, right, taking care of cattle, are mostly women farmers, and that's where most of the direction is going. Regarding core agriculture, activity to activity depends upon. There are certain activities where mostly male farmers are taking care of, certain activities where women farmers are taking care of. There are also differences based on their cropping pattern, size of the farmer. All those things are definitely out there, and hence the way that we engage with them vary upon the kind of engagements that they have.
So I kind of like, I would say that I would resonate with what Shyam has mentioned, and but particularly if we break down, there are, like earlier there was a talk about diversity of agriculture, like every 200, 300 kilometers, things drastically change. I think similar is the case with demography overall. Like we started primarily in central part of the country, which is Madhya Pradesh. And there the average landholding size is higher in general. And which is primarily, if we compare it with UP and MP, UP is around 0.7 hectares, MP is around 2.5 hectares, going towards 3 hectares. Now here, in MP, we have seen there is larger mechanization, especially soya grows. So therefore, the involvement of male farmers is much higher in this geography. But as we move towards UP, we recently started working in Western UP. There we are seeing that it's a mixed kind of thing. And then there are several types of activities, like Shyam was also mentioning, that happens. Like if it's a purchase of inputs, primarily it would be a male who would decide that. But now people who are doing fruits and vegetables, it's a more the work which is there on ground. A lot of it is basically decided by the women of the house. So therefore, for various activities, you need to keep in mind what kind of targeting that you have to do. And like Bala also mentioned about that there is a large decision making in the hands of women, and when they are into processing and those kind of aspects. So I would say it's very much demography dependent, geography dependent. My imagination is that in Bihar, probably the where the land sizes are much more small. There, since the male goes out for probably a secondary source of income, therefore the involvement of women is much higher in agriculture in those places. So I mean, like, we can't paint it in the same way, but this is what my like experience working in this space in multiple states has told, that you have to have specific strategy for specific geographies. And I think the way we work over here, that to counter the diversity in agriculture, we basically call 2 to 3 districts as one unit, go deep in those micro markets. So over there, if you work, then the diversity basically typically goes down, because you're talking about same types of crops, same kind of language, same kind of behavior, same kind of language patterns, and same kind of product which is also selling over there. If you break it down into smaller pieces, then there is a lot of similarity, and then you can go deeper over there and basically build your unit economics. And like, I think we were talking about unit economics earlier, my call just got disconnected. I mean, like, again, because of the diversity of multiple states, we went in stage one of our company direct to the farmer. So our focus was that farmer will be the center of entire like things. Then direct delivery. But in UP, it won't make sense actually. So in UP, when we started B2B2C, because the average land holding is around 0.7 hectares. Your average order sizes will be much smaller. Your logistics costs at the last mile will never be able to cover until unless you have huge density in one geography. So there, B2B2C makes more sense. So I think these are kind of things which you learn over time, and you basically keep change the model or make it diverse. I think those are things which can happen only with very strong like tech and understanding of the entire like ecosystem.
Just picking on your point, Tauseef, you mentioned that, when the density changes, you need different models. In that context, I think there's a lot of questions in Q&A also about the role that the emerging FPO model, which is very touted as a good model. How does Agritech and the convergence of FPO or any sort of aggregation for that in that way is useful? And what do you see the future for aggregation from your work so far?
I think we have seen various phases of these kind of like so there is a huge like potential of basically bringing larger pieces and making the economics like work together. So I think in various avatars I have seen like working with FPOs, there are very few FPOs in the country who function the way they should ideally like function. There is a lot of individualism within the FPO ecosystem, but it will be there in any like such ecosystem. I feel that in the FPOs are also transitioning from this is, I would say, phase 3. As a percentage today, you would get higher like number of FPOs who probably have transitioned from coming together, forming a FPO, maybe taking some kind of government subsidy. So FPOs typically were basically, a lot of it was subsidy driven. Now I feel that probably if there are 10,000 FPOs, maybe like there would be 100 or 200 or 300 of them who would be effectively like working. And so I think there is a lot of groundwork which needs to be done over there to bring all these things together, because from a typical structure of a FPO, there is a lot of like infra need, I would say, uh, uh, technical training needs, and making them as a business so that they can perform. So those are the jobs which typically any startup who is working with them is trying to do. And then there are a lot of NGOs who are working with these FPOs who are trying to basically bridge this gap which is there in the entire FPO ecosystem. So we have, frankly speaking, not worked a lot with a lot of FPOs till now, but right now we are exploring with some of the FPO structures to work with.
Yeah, I have a question for Subhadeep. Subhadeep, agriculture is one subject where government is very integral, government in policy making, right?
Yeah.
I think when Agritech started, none of the policymakers even knew what Agritech is all about, right? Now we are seeing government engaging at multiple levels. Ministry of Agriculture to state governments to a lot of public institutions, including even public sector banks now.
Yeah.
How do you see that landscape changing? Since you have a longer view on the sector, how that has changed and how that can potentially change in the future, where policy becomes an enabler for higher agri-tech adoption?
Sure. So again, much like my previous response, a lot of this is basically what we've seen over the years, and it kind of reflects the overall growth of course, agri-tech startups, but also generally startups overall in the Indian ecosystem. So the level of awareness of any bureaucracy today across multiple states to the concept that can startups work with the government, or can the government try and be more engaging and open towards a startup, I think is a very welcome shift. With the whole Startup India kind of campaign, I think there's been a lot of sensitization, and a lot has been done on that front as well. Specific to agri, I think whatever we see today, I would still think that it's not very commonly out there. I think the government is doing well on that front. They are opening more and more early stage agri incubators, for example. All of our agri, universities, which both you and I come from, have incubators today, right? Which never existed when we were there. So it gives students and kind of younger talent to at least know that there are potential opportunities either as an entrepreneur or kind of as an employee to get engaged in these newer businesses. So I think that conversation, I think, has moved really well. Where we see this really maybe an inflection point coming is when they really make agri-tech startups part and parcel of their massive procurement network as well. The government is a massive stakeholder, a massive purchaser of a lot of goods and services, especially in this space. So if they can collaborate, as they do with companies which are maybe 30 years old, can they collaborate with startups which are 4 years old? So it requires a huge mind shift, right? It's like the whole fintech argument where we're looking at companies or banks trying to understand that how do I underwrite this guy who probably does not have a proper CIBIL? Can I look at their cash flows and can we underwrite them, right? So it will take a lot of time for like a traditional bank to really think that way. But when they do, it will unlock massive potential for both parties. So I think somewhere similar is our approach to how government and I think the agri-tech startups are kind of engaging and learning about each other. I think today, I would be surprised if anyone on this panel or anyone otherwise walks into a government office and is not given, consideration or is not recognized that, okay, or this is interesting, let's see what we can do. So I think that's kind of the overall view on bureaucracy. There are certain parts of it, of course, like very specific policies, like we recently kind of saw the entire SOPs on drone usage in agri, right? For crop spraying and all, very detailed handbook which has gone out to the entire ecosystem, which took a long time, but it's finally here. So certain things like that, of course, are challenging. We're, of course, waiting for something on the agri stack to kind of come up, where digitization of land records and real-time updation, if that can happen, it will hugely benefit kind of the whole agri fintech space and enable a lot of credit flow, which the sector truly deserves at a much more cheaper cost, and hence benefiting farmers and other stakeholders as well. So I think policies are always, a 5-10 year game, but generally I think we find that because of the larger startup recognition, there is a much more openness towards trying to work with agri-tech startups as well.
Great. On that point, actually, we've been talking about, massive investment of time in terms of startups and evolution of business models, as well as engagement with multi-stakeholders and statewide variations, right, which are coming up. And that exposes, multitude of things within the agri-tech space. And if a startup wants to get into it, so one of the key things to be able to pull that off is actually, the talent which the companies acquire, the leadership that is needed. So what are some of the key challenges that you are facing as companies to acquire the talent that is needed to do these jobs? Because that's an important aspect without which the sustainability of the company and the ideas would also, have suffer. So I would like you to weigh in on these points. Maybe where I can start, and then we can just go one by one, because this is a question that actually has to be addressed even to the downstream, where in terms of education, skill sets, what are needed for companies such as we all have been trying to do from last 10 years and really sort of being in this game. Yeah. Sreeram, would you like to start? And then maybe we can come to
so probably we were the first ones to start. And the advantage is I started in Vijayawada, which is a tier 2 city. The advantage of doing agribusiness is there is a lot of raw talent available who are willing to go to the fields and work. So almost, I'm fortunate that almost like 70% of my workforce of Eruvaka are from an agri background. So I don't need to motivate them to go to the field. So they're self-motivated to go and speak to the farmers. And the second most important thing is the team has to be empathetic to the farmers. So since they come from a similar background, they know how to deal with the farmer. So that's one big advantage that I saw. And good thing is a lot of these people are dealing with international clients. They go to Latin America and convince the farmers to buy the devices. So I would say we don't need to scout for talent from established industries. We need to be patient enough to give opportunity to the raw talent available in tier 2 cities and in rural areas. And they shape up really well. And the loyalty of the workforce is also good. The attrition is also very low with this set of people. They have extreme high levels of loyalty to the company, and they're more passionate towards what they're working for.
Great. Subhadeep, Tauseef, please go.
I'll go ahead. There was a silence, so I thought I'll pick it up. See, I think in the last 6 years of our overall work, today we are around 600 plus kind of an organization. Plus, we have a network of micro entrepreneurs who are working at the last mile. And these are typically people who are farmers, sons and daughters, 10th, 12th graduate, doing a lot of on-ground work. These are not guys who are on payrolls, but they earn from a commission kind of a structure. So, and then there is at the top a large pool, which is basically coming from the overall outside the agri ecosystem itself. So we've seen there is different levels of engagement which is required for each sort of uh, talent. But overall, I think hiring from the local areas is something that we have followed, number one. Number two, there has been a very strong training structure that we have put in internally. And we partner with local colleges for that, because there is definitely a dearth of talent when you're looking at that. You want to hire maybe 2,000 people, 3,000 people over the next like 2 years people of time. It's tough. It's not easy. And secondly, all these people are also not very much, they are learning technology. Now, when I say technology, then it could be a simple workflow management system application built on that. So there has to be a small team which takes care of all these aspects internally. And in fact, we have gone ahead one step ahead, that we have partnered with all the local colleges. We go there and send our agronomists to train them even before they are passing out, actually, even before we are conducting interviews. I think because, see, at the end of the day, a lot is tech-led, tech-enabled, but uh, there is a social element if you're able to actually um, uh, creatively use that, then the transactions and happening of transaction is very like easy. Otherwise, the cost of transaction is very high. If I suppose, imagine that I'll pump in money on Google ads, Facebook ads, and get revenues. I think a mix of both is very much like required. Until unless you do that, the economics don't like work. Our digital ads are like very low, but we have more than 1.5 million farmers coming through us to through digital like tools. So, so the point basically I'm trying to make is that there is a lot of training that needs to be done. There is a lot of engagement that you need to do with local like colleges. There is definitely like a dearth of talent. Secondly, when we hire the tech talent, product talent, senior management, if we hire from the industry, there is a lot of like resistance to change. If we don't hire from the industry, understanding is like missing. So therefore, in between, like somewhere you need to like play over there. And so that's where I think there is a lot of attitude check that you need to do. And then again, in the entire like journey of an employee, if he or she is even a coder, can you like maybe put them in a rural like setup for some time, so that they can understand the reality of things? Because understanding the reality is like very difficult actually. And I think one thing which played out very well for us, that we started from Indore, we remained there for like 6 years. We worked on the ground and we took everybody on the ground. So therefore, I think that has inculcated. So these are some of the things anybody who is working in this space has to take care of it. And rest, I think then is just like process you need to like follow basically. So that's our kind of like understanding over the last 5 years of our existence.
Thanks. Subhadeep, you have a different view, and maybe Shyam after that.
Sure. So not different, but I would say maybe a couple of additional points to what have been made so far. I think one area where we have seen founders or early teams maybe push out, and this is not a judgment, but people don't spend enough time on getting a good CFO, a good process guy. Because if you're a solo founder, then anyways there is enough madness, right, at the early stages. If you're a team, you're lucky. But getting somebody who can, and agriculture is all about thin margins. It is about ensuring that there are controls and processes everywhere. So while you're building out a great tech product, don't forget this part, the dirty, ugly part of the business, right? So I think that is definitely one part. Compliance is getting more and more important, right, as we go along. Being a responsible business is also extremely important and rewarding both. So I think that's kind of an addition. And overall, I think from a portfolio level, what we've seen is that, what Tauseef mentioned is that getting people who are not from agri, specifically in the tech and product roles, where Sometimes the other markets or other offers which these candidates have might be 3x of your budget, right? Or 4x of your budget. So at that point, I think motivation and attitude becomes really important. So you may not get the best quality engineer possible, but if that person wants to kind of build a career or has a familiarity with the space because of his or her background, then go for them also, because this is a hard sector. You will have to go on the field, you will have to go learn, spend time on the field, irrespective of whichever function you run. There are so many companies within our portfolio and otherwise who basically, could not get such people, and hence had to invest a lot of time and effort in actually kind of doing all these L&D activities, even at an early stage, right? When you're actually just focused on growing. So I think those are, again, kind of have been our learnings, that hire people who kind of want to work in that space also, in addition to maybe doing what they're good at. Only hiring for skills does not always work, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I will concur with what Subhadeep has been saying about Tauseef. Right? See, more than any other sector, right? This sector needs patience. Be any role that you are, patience is required. Simply because there is a large seasonality, right? Say right now, paddy sowing season is going on, right? And all of us who are here, right, in some way or other are connected to our seasons, right? Our seasonality, our products, crops, right? And any learnings that we will have, right? The only time then when we will correct them, right, mostly would be next year. It's that kind of seasonality which works. Then it needs a lot of patience, right? Now remember what Subhadeep had said during his initial answer, right? There had been phases, right? When we started almost 10 years back. That time there was a surprise of people getting into agri sector from different sectors, right? There was mostly traditional companies and people who were coming from a partially agri graduates. And then then a time came post 17-18 when it became a sector where people wanted to go and learn and experiment and from all sectors. I think the requirement then what happened is that this marrying of two things, right? How, where people are coming from core agri background, right? How you can train them on various digital technologies, on the way, say, if we are running as an e-commerce platform, right? How you can shift those mindset, especially when they are coming from not just agriculture backgrounds, but also coming from, say, product-based companies, right? Say an agri input manufacturer or agri output player. Right? So how you can do that bit of unlearning and learning here. Similarly, people who are not coming from the sectoral background, and especially coming from backgrounds which are primarily urban areas centered, right? How you can develop that intuitive sense of agri, right? What are different sense of farmers are about, what is the ecosystem is about, that intuitive sense of agri, which is very much important, whether you are building tech, whether you are building operations, whether you are building the core product, right? All those things have become very much important. That has been a constant challenge for us. Good thing is that there is definitely lot of interest in coming to agri from across the board, right? From MBA colleges, from different kind of graduates, from tech people. There is a lot of interest, right? Everyone now understand that there is the penetration of technology is definitely happening. What we have discussed over the last couple of months and couple of hours, and the overall problem statement and the opportunity is huge in this sector, right? Turn every corner, and you will have multi-billion dollar problem statement over there, right? So that kind of opportunity is there, and which is what is exciting this overall talent pool, I would say, right? But then it's up to ecosystem players, including us, right, to ensure that both of us will get complementary skills as they go forward in their careers.
Vidya, though I'm a moderator, I'm also tempted to answer your question.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So I think we need to clearly, Agritech, there was always a challenge of capital in the initial years. I think as an investor, I can tell you capital is available and is going to be commoditized. Clearly the war is for talent. And the ones who win the talent war is going to win the race. And I think that's where we need to solve it systematically. And I think I see two levels of interventions. One is how agriculture is being taught in universities and management institutions like IIMA. I think we really need to synchronize the courses with this huge upcoming demand from Agritech. Courses on data sciences, almost non-existent in agriculture universities. Courses on post-harvest management, courses on processing, mechanization is such a large opportunity, right? Specialized courses on animal husbandry and stuff like that. I think we need to really rethink. In fact, I made a similar pitch to about 50 odd vice chancellors at a meet in Telangana recently, that please reorient these courses. I think that is the need of the hour. And I think second, which I think Tauseef alluded, how do we create this talent at the grassroots level? How do we train a rural youth in flying drones, for example? I'm assuming drone is becoming a large opportunity. How do we train people out there in farm level aggregation, in managing cold storages, right? In doing quality assessing of products, in doing soil testing. There's so many soil testing solutions available, right? And earn money, right? So I think that is the lens we need to have if we really want to create talent with the kind of demand which is emerging for it.
Great. I think attitude is key. That's something that we've picked up from this panel here for this sector. Patience, all the qualitative aspects to be in this diverse environment, also at multi-levels, as you all discussed. I think we're almost out of time, but I would take 2 more minutes and quickly in a couple of sentences, maybe each one of you can give us your key to business, key to success as a business, and also what you see as the emerging ag tech that you see from your business point of view. We start with Bala because he didn't get opportunity. The last one. Thanks.
Yeah, so we would like to see our food as a company which is providing end-to-end solution for farm level processing and then connecting the buyer by providing the agri infrastructure. So we would like to see no farmer selling the raw material in the mandi. So everyone needs to process on farm, bring it to the next level product, and then connect directly to the buyer. So this is the vision, and we would like to disrupt this entire market with our innovations by providing end-to-end solution. And the key for us is the patience, because all agri-tech solutions require a lot of patience. And the people who come from outside also, they are comparing the agri-tech startups with other startups and saying, within 1 or 2 years, we should become a multi-billion-dollar company. So it's not like that. It needs a lot of patience and a lot of understanding.
Thanks. Shyam, would you like to go next?
Very interesting question. So, there are 2 things that we definitely chase, right, since the beginning. We chase convergence, we chase collaboration, right? This is a sector, as a model also, we seek convergence at the last mile level, right? Around farmers' ecosystem, right? Convergence around access to quality agri input markets, access to market linkage, access to quality information, access to financial services, mechanization, you name it, right? Livestock management, right? All of those things, right? A convergence of all those things helps smallholder. I think largely that had been our hypothesis, that at the last mile delivery of products and services, this is what is required in this ecosystem, right? So that is one thing. Another thing is collaboration, right? We don't need to reinvent a lot of things which are already there, right? There are a lot of innovations, a lot of large, great companies with amazing products and services and offerings that they have, right? But what will benefit this ecosystem is that there is a large collaborative effort. I mean, there is a lot of synchronous collaborative effort happening across the board, across multiple organizations which are in this sector, right? be it government institutions, be it academic institutions or private players, startups like us, right? There's a lot of sense in making those synergies, right? And there are various, I'm sure there are various forums and everything which are working towards that. But the need of, if you ask our wish list, that would be that would be something, right? Otherwise, it's a vast sector, a lot of opportunities, but a lot of new things and challenges which are also there, and that would be the key to solve for these challenges.
Tauseef, your key idea.
I think over the next, I would take it from what Subhadeep was mentioning, that we are in the third phase of digitization of agriculture. So right now, we are seeing that people have started moving to transactions, and I feel that this will be one of the largest piece for the next 5 years. And people who have built deeper penetration in geographies, I think they would start productizing or making that platform available for a lot of next generation products and services to penetrate deeper in geographies. The example of that is that suppose in one of the geographies, there are 20,000, 30,000 farmers associated with one company. It's a huge value over there with each farmers on the input side and the output side. The total value of transaction is more than 3 to 4 lakhs in a year. Actually, it's higher, both input and output. So if you work deeper in geographies, all the other services, which is right from finance, input, output, then I think we will see sustainability and profitability coming in the entire system of agri startups. Right now, what is happening is that there are a lot of piece work which is being done by different players who are going to the same customers. I think there will be some consolidation that would happen in this space in the next 4 or 5 years, and we've already started seeing that happening. With that happening, I think more collaboration, and especially now banks, we've started seeing banks coming to us for lending. NBFCs coming to us for that you have the last mile 50,000 village reach of micro entrepreneurs. Can I embed the products over here? There are startups who are individually doing this. I think collaboration will be a big piece for the next 4 to 5 years for all these things to become successful, I would say. And so this will be the next, I would say, 4th phase of digitization, and we have just seen 10% of farmers today utilizing such products and services. I think this number would probably translate to 20%, 30% in next 4 to 5 years period of time, and this will be faster. It was much slow. Last 3-4 years have been faster. More money is also being pumped in the space. There will be more innovation. I'm pretty much excited about the next phase. I would say the groundwork to now move ahead and maybe build the next larger or the largest company in this space.
Thanks. Moving on, I think Subhadeep, probably Tauseef has not taken your point yet, and you still have some, because you said third phase, he gave you the 4th phase. Now I don't know which phase we're entering.
That we can define 4 phases and all, but I would say that we would agree to a lot of things.
Yeah.
I'll come up with another phase. It's fine. So, so I think 2 things. One is agree with 100% of what everyone has said. Collaboration, I think we've been already saying that, and we get to see this because we're at that kind of apex level and seeing so many people doing a lot of things where they can collaborate and move faster. But I guess it's a function of time, right? Everyone has to reach their own kind of size before they collaborate. So that's definitely going to happen. I think another key for people who are starting up now or thinking about doing that, one general viewpoint that we've seen work very well is just be very close to your customer. Now this is kind of controversial because I'm kind of going against all my bread and butter in some ways, but this entire funding media, etc., is one part of the business, right? It's something that you got to do for sure. But if you're close to your customer, if you're funding your business through the best ways, which is the customers validating by making you by paying you, I think investors will follow, right? Capital will follow at some point. So being close to the customer in your early days is going to be very, very, very crucial. That's kind of my single advice, apart from the fact that you've got to be patient and you need to build your first 10 or 15 people, or maybe even 20 people very carefully from a culture building standpoint, because the DNA that you set with the first 20 people in the organization or 30 people in the organization makes or breaks good companies in our limited experience. On a larger point on spaces, I think given that a bit of what we do is crystal ball gazing, and invest super early into things which become hot 10 years later, case in point, some people here or otherwise. I think that in a 10-year kind of horizon, once the fourth wave, which Tauseef is mentioning, is towards its end, we'll also see a massive need to be much more sustainable in agriculture. And I mean this from a resource efficiency standpoint. We're already seeing some early cracks on how climate is playing, a deadly distraught game around productivity, around prices. There can be other events of turmoil, which are either environmental or otherwise in nature. There'll be shocks, basically. So how do you start building some products again, now that those wonderful digital highways and distribution and aggregations have been built? How do you fundamentally look at basic science-led products also helping us be much more sustainable in agriculture? I think that's going to become, and when I say agriculture, I also mean animal health and livestock and everything else. But that also becomes a very, very important point, which I think 10 years down the line will become very important to help us keep moving up the productivity, value, profit ladder, right, as an ecosystem. And at Omnivore, I think we've been fortunate to be the first dedicated fund in the space. We continue to remain the same, and we continue to hope to invest in great entrepreneurs and otherwise contribute in as meaningful a way as possible. And to Hemendra's point, I think the count is 45 right now. I was also checking, and we hope to double that maybe in the next few years.
Great. I think making agriculture and ag-tech businesses and the whole ecosystem resilient and sustainable is a great point that you made. Sreeram, I think last word on the key future idea in your business.
Yeah, I feel that mechanization is the key for Indian agriculture right now. So if we see a lot of these implements haven't changed for the last 30, 40 years. And I see that there is a lot of engineering that has to go into this equipment to make them more efficient. For example, we grow maize, and because of an improper seed drill, the germination was only like 60% and the yield was obviously less. And similarly, also optimization of resources. So if to do optimize the pesticide spraying, you need better equipment, the see and spray technologies which are being developed in the West. We need to customize it for Indian conditions to make it more resource efficient and make it more sustainable, so that the farmer would get benefited out of using less resources. I think there has to be a Tesla moment for all the agriculture implements with the good engineering talent we have in the country. I think we should see a John Deere kind of a company roll out. I think each crop is $1 billion industry in India. So there would be 10 to 20 John Deere kind of applications can be done in India. So the other thing is farmers who produce in a sustainable way needs to get paid. That is where all these digital ecosystems play a key role. Like you have a mobile phone for 15,000 from MI and Apple sells it for 1 lakh. It's ultimately the functionality is same. There has to be consumer awareness of what are the good practices, how do they eat healthy food. And these full stack companies also need to play a key role in terms of giving good advisory services to the farmers to grow them in a sustainable manner, and also create consumer awareness, which would encourage more farmers to be in that sector, be profitable, and the whole ecosystem would be sustainable.
Great. I think that's a lot of points, right from the farmer to the consumer awareness. You've sort of bridged everything in one go. Thanks for that. And I think we can have a multiple John Deere moments, as you rightly said, given the mechanization spectra we have. Hemendra, I think you can probably put an end to the great session we've had.
So I'll be honest, it's very difficult to summarize this session. But yeah, I can think of multiple P's that we discussed: people, process, patience, partnerships, profits, at least 5 P's. There could be more. Reminds me of my IIMA days when we were reading Kotler. I think those 4 P's were different. These 5 P's are a bit different, but nonetheless, as relevant as it can be. But all I want to say is thank you. I know it's Saturday evening, it's dinner time. I never expected so much of participation on a weekend evening. So first of all, thanks to all the panelists, Bala, Shyam, Tauseef, Subhadeep, Sreeram. I think without you, we wouldn't have achieved this. So many thanks. Thanks to Anurag and Vidya for working through with us. Thanks to Vidya for being such a great moderator. I'm sure Vidya will be moderating many more sessions in times to come. That's very clear. So thanks very much. And I must thank a few other people who are working behind the scenes. Sukesh has been working day and night to make this happen. Tusharika, she's been such a great resource. She's working with us to put this panel together. Ankush and many other alumni who have really worked very hard to make sure that we get off with this first webinar. All I can say, there are many more interesting discussions going forward. That's all I can promise. We'll soon come up with the topic of our next discussion. And till then, goodbye, stay in touch, and have a good weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot,
Thank
Bala.
you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Shyam. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.